Welcome back, NFL fans. So about a week ago, I made a reaction to the Russell Wilson trade. I reacted to the Aaron Rodgers staying in Green Bay news. But over the past weeks, so much has happened in the NFL with the start of free agency. A ton of unexpected moves have happened. Trades, Deshaun Watson, Von Miller got a 6-year deal, all that type of stuff. I'm going to talk about it, give my opinion. I'm thinking I might have to do a part 2 because there has been so much that's gone on here in the NFL recently, so I might do a part 2 depending on how this video does and how much you guys like it. But anyway, we're going to go over some of the biggest moves that happened so far this offseason. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and let's get into it. The first piece of news we'll start with is Deshaun Watson going to the Cleveland Browns, which was a big surprise. I think it really came down to the New Orleans Saints versus the Atlanta Falcons. That's what all the reports were saying. The Browns were originally in it, and then they were kind of out of it, and then just randomly this trade happens between the Browns and the Texans, and Deshaun Watson's now a Cleveland Browns. So it's pretty crazy, honestly, that the Baker Mayfield stuff, we'll get to that after this, but Deshaun Watson, of course, goes to Cleveland for 3 first-round picks, a third and a fourth-rounder, and Deshaun Watson gets a 5-year, $230 million all-guaranteed contract, which is an NFL record. I believe the next most guaranteed money was $150 million, so he has that beat by $80 million, which was Aaron Rodgers' most recent contract. So it's just crazy. But Deshaun Watson going to Cleveland really puts them in that Super Bowl contender area. Unfortunately, Baker Mayfield could not do that for them. They almost made it to the AFC Championship game in 2020. Remember, Patrick Mahomes left halfway through. I think it was Chad Henne came in, and the Chiefs still got the victory there, held on. But the Browns added Amari Cooper. They have a very good offensive line. They have 2 really good running backs, of course. That team is set up to win, and they have a defense that's very talented. I mean, look, they could be a bit better in some areas, of course, but their defense overall is very good. Apparently, they want to get Jadeveon Clowney back. We'll see if that happens for them, but it's a great run game. You add an elite quarterback to that team, assuming Deshaun Watson is the same guy he was in Houston. And as for Watson, I mean, look, I'm happy for him in a way because, it's just a very crappy situation. We'll never know entirely if he was innocent or not, but if he really was innocent, it's a bad way to just have it go down, like not play football for an entire year during your prime. So I believe all the cases were dropped, and now he's the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He may face some type of suspension, but they just signed Jacoby Brissett. He may start the first 2, 4, 6 games, whatever the suspension may be for Deshaun Watson. That can definitely impact the Browns' playoff hopes for next year, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway, yes, crazy news there with Deshaun Watson, but I'm just happy it's finally resolved. Now, as for Baker Mayfield, who was the Cleveland Browns quarterback, it got kind of awkward there because Deshaun Watson, I think, had a visit with the Browns. Baker Mayfield, of course, took offense to that, realized his future in Cleveland may be over. Baker Mayfield releases this statement thanking Cleveland for having him and the 4 years he spent there and all that. So it seemed like Baker wanted to move on. Then Baker Mayfield requests a trade, and a couple of days later, Deshaun Watson actually is traded to the Browns. So it all kind of worked itself out. But the Browns still have to trade Baker Mayfield somewhere because there's no way in hell you're having a quarterback too making $18 million on your cap hit. So Baker Mayfield will most likely be on a different team next year. The Colts and the Seahawks are the betting favorites right now. Baker Mayfield, people have the opinion either he sucks or he's decent. And I think he's decent. I think he's actually above average. That's what I think Baker Mayfield is. He's had 2 really good years and 2 pretty bad years. His rookie year, very good. His second year with Freddie Kitchens, the bad offensive line, very bad. 2020, it went very well. First year Stefanski, and things went very well in that offense. His touchdown-to-interception ratio was awesome. Then this past year, plays with the torn labrum, a couple other injuries, and he had a bad year. But I don't think Baker Mayfield's as bad as he was in 2021. I think Baker Mayfield's closer to the 2020 version. I may be alone on that one. I feel like a lot of people like to hate Baker Mayfield. I get why, but still, I think he has good football ahead of him, and if he goes to the Colts, I think that'd be a great fit. No one wants to go to Seattle right now. They don't have a win-now type roster. It's more of a rebuild over there. But you plot Baker Mayfield into Indianapolis right now, that's going to be a competitive football team. So I do want to see that for him personally. I'm not sure where he'll go, but it's definitely a possibility. Next piece of news is Tom Brady unretires. He was retired for 41 days and did not last very long. I guess Tom Brady has some unfinished business here. I personally believe, and I'm sure many other people feel this way, is that he saw how bad the NFC was and how really non-competitive it is. I mean, looking at his division right now, you have a Falcons team that missed out on Deshaun Watson, another year of Matt Ryan. You have a Saints team that, they just lost Sean Payton. They are bringing Jameis Winston back, which I like, but still, what are they going to do next year? They could be like a 9-10 win team, I guess. And you have Carolina, where who the hell knows? They're not that great of a team. So that division should be the Buccaneers' favorites to win right there. And just looking at the whole NFC, the quarterback demographic there is not that great. Of course, Aaron Rodgers comes back, but Russell Wilson leaves. It just seems like it's a very good spot to be in right now if you're Tom Brady. You have that division, not locked up, nothing's guaranteed, but a very good chance to win your division, get one of the top 2 or 3 seeds, and go from there. Why not just give it one more shot? And Tom Brady's still playing at a very, very high level. He just had 5,200 pass yards and 40-something touchdowns. The guy is still playing at a very high level, and I always figured it'd be a family-related thing as to why he wanted to stop playing, but Tom Brady can still play, so why not keep going? Now, I'm sure there is some pettiness involved in here. Maybe he wanted to retire on his own terms. I'm sure Brady's not happy that Adam Schefter released the retirement information before Brady was able to release that himself. Maybe that has something to do with it. But also, Tampa Bay did lose a couple offensive linemen. Alex Kappa goes to Cincinnati, who really, Cincinnati, I give them credit. They really did a great job of improving their offensive line here the past couple weeks. And Ali Marpet is now retired, which is kind of surprising. I don't think he was that old. So they lost some offensive line pieces, but they got Chris Godwin back. They re-signed the cornerback Carlton Davis. They traded for Shaq Mason from the Patriots. They signed Russell Gage from the Falcons. They have some good things going on over there. So I do like this Bucs team, and we'll see if Tom Brady in his age, 45 season now, can still play at a high level, but I would never bet against them. Next, and this one I still believe, in my opinion, is the most shocking one this offseason, because I just assume that when Aaron Rodgers returned to Green Bay, it was definitely decided that Davante Adams was going to stay one more year as well on the franchise tag at least. But Davante Adams was in fact traded to the Las Vegas Raiders for a first-round pick number 22 overall and a second-round pick number 53 overall. So this really surprised me. He goes to the Las Vegas Raiders, signed a 5-year, $140 million deal with Las Vegas, the highest average for a wide receiver. That pairs him back with Derek Carr, who we had at Fresno State. Of course, that's some great news there for those guys. And Rodgers knew that Adams was not going to come back. Rodgers came out and admitted that he knew that Davante Adams' time in Green Bay is over. So that leaves us with the question of who's the Packers wide receiver 1 going to be in 2022? That's the big question they have to figure out right now. So can the Packers replace him in the draft the same way that the Vikings were able to replace Stephon Diggs a couple years ago when they drafted Justin Jefferson somewhere in the mid-20s? So we'll see if Green Bay can do that. It's definitely not easy, but we'll find out. Maybe Odell Beckham Jr. goes to the Packers or something like that. We'll see how they handle that situation. But this was surprising, but I'm definitely interested to see how that combination of Derek Carr, Davante Adams works once again with guys like Darren Waller and Bryan Edwards and Josh Jacobs around them. Next, we have Carson Wentz getting traded to the Washington Commanders, they're called now. So the Colts get a second-round pick, a third-round pick, and a possible second-round pick in 2023. Washington gets Wentz and a second-round pick. So Carson Wentz is a guy last year that had a 62 completion percentage, over 3,500 yards, 27 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. And when you look at those numbers, you're like, oh, the guy had a pretty good season. But I've never seen a guy get hated on so much for having those type of numbers. It's really not that bad. I feel like some fan bases, myself included, would kill to have a quarterback to have those numbers. But Carson Wentz going out sad in that final week against Jacksonville kind of just put the cherry on top to what many Colts fans and NFL fans will feel is a disappointing season for Carson Wentz. But if you told them before the year, you're going to get these numbers from Carson Wentz, I just feel like most people would sign up for that. I have no idea. But anyway, the Colts seem done with him. You can tell by the GM quotes, Chris Ballard, that they pretty much wanted to move on here. So it's not a surprise that Carson Wentz moves on here. But the compensation they got for him is not that bad at all. I know they gave up a second-round pick in the process, but they get a second, a third, and a possible second that at worst is a third-round pick for next year is not bad at all. Now, Washington I feel bad for because apparently they made a better offer for Russell Wilson than the Denver Broncos did, but Seattle did not want to trade Russell Wilson in the same conference. So that really sucks for Washington, going from possibly Russell Wilson having to kind of settle for Carson Wentz. But this just feels like one of those things that's going to go either very well or very bad. And I just don't know where Carson Wentz is going to fall. I think Carson Wentz is fine, but you can tell sometimes his footwork is messed up, his decision-making is awful, but he is still very talented. He's not that old, and we'll see what he can do with Washington next year. Next, we have Khalil Mack traded to the Los Angeles Chargers. Not much of a surprise there, of course. Melvin Ingram left there, and they just needed somebody opposite of Joey Bosa, so why not get yourself Khalil Mack, who had a injured/down year last year. Chicago's not really a win-now type team. You might as well get some draft picks for him. Chicago got a 2nd and a 6th round pick for Khalil Mack. Mack's 31, missed 10 games last year, but before that was very, very durable, played like 15-plus games every single year. Before that, now, the numbers may show a slight decline for Khalil Mack, but at the same time, you don't know how much he was double-teamed and all that stuff, so that definitely plays into it. And you may have the best pass rushing duo in the NFL if Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack are both healthy, which is a big what if, but if they are, those guys together might be one of the best duos in the NFL. But looking at Khalil Mack's contract, this year it's an $8 million cap hit, not a big deal. But in 2023 and 2024, it's a $27 million cap hit. So that's insane. They have to figure out something there. Could this be a one-year rental type thing? Maybe, but we'll find out about that. Hopefully Khalil Mack works out there for the Chargers. Now, speaking of the Chargers, I kind of put this on the bottom. I don't know why I went out of order, but J.C. Jackson also went to the Chargers on a 5-year, $82.5 million deal, the former Patriots cornerback. He wanted to get paid very highly, and he got it. It wasn't exactly Jalen Ramsey type money, but he is now the 7th highest paid cornerback on yearly average in the NFL. Jackson was an All-Pro in 2021, and he's had 17 interceptions over the past 2 years, while allowing only a 46 passer rating in his direction last season. So he has been one of the better outside cornerbacks in the NFL. The Chargers definitely needed one. Casey Hayward left there, of course, a couple years back, so they needed that guy, and they have a really good secondary now of Asante Samuel Jr. and Derwin James. That's going to be a fun defense to watch next year. Next, we have Julio Jones, was released by the Tennessee Titans, only lasted 1 season. They traded a 2nd and a 4th round pick just a year ago to acquire him from the Atlanta Falcons, so I would say the Falcons made out very well with that trade. He missed 7 games last year, battled some hamstring issues, was always in and out. I had him on a fantasy team. It was so frustrating because he would come back and then get hurt and then come back and get hurt. It was one of those seasons for Julio Jones. He only had 1 great game last year. It was at Seattle, a game where I thought he scored a touchdown, but apparently he was out, although I thought he was in. But outside of that, he really was not that impressive. He was more of a possession receiver, definitely lost a lot of explosiveness. Now, how much of that was the hamstring issue, we'll find out. But he is 33 years old. Apparently, Tom Brady wanted to recruit him to Tampa Bay, but that was before the Russell Gage contract. We'll see if that happens. I doubt it at this point. Maybe he's a guy for the Green Bay Packers. We'll find out how much Julio Jones has left in the tank. I'd be surprised if he gets a multi-year deal, but I'm sure Julio Jones somewhere will land on a 1-year deal. Next, we have linebacker Bobby Wagner got released by the Seahawks. He played there for a very long time and really put together a Hall of Fame career, honestly. He's still very good. There may have been a bit of a drop-off, of course, in recent years, but he is still a very good linebacker in this league. 170 tackles last year. He has not missed more than 1 game since 2014. Very durable. He's now 31, but he should have a big market. I think there are a lot of teams out there that could use that linebacker to help. The Cleveland Browns come to mind. That's a contender right there. But there's a lot of teams out there that could use the services of Bobby Wagner. He will go down as one of the better Seahawks of all time, so it was a great career there, but it just made sense to move on for a rebuilding team. And hopefully Bobby Wagner can actually go out there and contend for a Super Bowl, which he did a lot earlier in his career with the Seahawks. Next, we have Von Miller going to the Bills on a 6-year, $120 million contract. I'm sure they can get out of that after a few years. I highly doubt he'll be there for all 6, but he is 33 now, but he looked as good as ever in the playoffs last year. I mean, in the regular season, he still put up good numbers, but in the playoffs specifically, he was vintage Von Miller when he got traded to the Los Angeles Rams. So there were some rumors he may go back to the Broncos. That would have been cool, of course, with Russell Wilson being there now and Denver being real Super Bowl contenders, but he wanted to go play for the Bills. I can't blame the guy. They're a very heavy favorite themselves here. The Bills have a very talented defensive line, very talented defense in general. general, but defensive line specifically, you have Ed Oliver, Shaq Lawson, you have Gregory Rousseau if he can come on here in year 2, but they have guys on that defense now that can hopefully get to the quarterback, and Von Miller will be a piece of that going forward. Speaking of the Rams, they got wide receiver Allen Robinson. He signs for 3 years, $46.5 million. Robinson finally has a good quarterback, Matthew Stafford. He has played with the likes of Blake Bortles, Mitch Trubisky, Chase Daniel, Nick Foles, Justin Fields, probably some other not-so-good quarterbacks I'm forgetting about here. He's still 28 years old, and it feels like Allen Robinson's been around forever, so that's still surprising. He had 102 catches, 1,250 yards, and 6 touchdowns just 2 years ago in 2020. And in a corresponding move, Robert Woods, who was owed some money here in the next couple of days, was traded to the Titans in the process for like a 6th-round pick. I like that move for the Titans. Yes, Robert Woods is coming off an ACL tear, but he is such a consistent receiver, a great blocker, and he'll always be there for Ryan Tannehill, so hopefully he comes back healthy. But as for the Rams, I do like the move. I think Allen Robinson's a very good receiver, of course. He just needs that quarterback, and I do think Matthew Stafford's one of the at least top half quarterbacks in the NFL. I would argue top 10, so hopefully this move works out for both sides. Next, we have Chandler Jones going to the Raiders for 3 years, $51 million. Just like Von Miller, he's a bit up there now. He's 32, but still playing at a very high level. He did have a 5-sack game last year, now that I'm remembering it, but still, he had a good year overall. He had 10.5 sacks in 15 games, and he will now be in that 3-4 defense with Patrick Graham, who was the former Giants defensive coordinator, who I like, so hopefully he does fit in nicely there. This move, they were able to move Yannick Ngakoue to the Colts for cornerback Rocky Ya-Sin, the young corner out of Temple. So we'll see if that works out for them there. But it really made no sense to keep Max Crosby, Yannick Ngakoue, and Chandler Jones. So I get why they had to make that move and kind of help that weak secondary. Of course, they lost Damon Arnett last year. But Chandler Jones should help out this team. And as long as he's healthy, he'll be fine. But we'll see how well he fits in that defense. And him and Max Crosby, as I mentioned before, with Joey Bosa and now Khalil Mack, that's going to be a very good pass rushing duo themselves. So I wanted to give the Jacksonville Jaguars their own little section here. They signed a few guys here for a lot of money, so I wanted to go over it. Christian Kirk gets 4 years and $72 million. Now, Kirk just had a really good season. It wasn't like phenomenal, but he had a really good season. I just don't look at Christian Kirk as a player that should be making that much money. I know free agency is all about, paying A+ money for B-level players, and that's pretty much what we're getting here. But it just feels like something that the Jacksonville Jaguars might regret here going forward. Now, if Doug Peterson's offense really features Christian Kirk and they just put the ball in his hands a bunch of times and it works out, then fine. I guess it makes sense from that perspective. But I don't know. It just seemed like a ton of money for me. And, he's a fine receiver, but I always considered him like a wide receiver too. That's wide receiver 1 money right there. So we'll see how that pans out. They also signed Brandon Sheriff to play guard for them, 3 years, $49.5 million. He's had problems staying on the field recently, but when he's out there, he's one of the better guards in football. So you're getting that. They signed Evan Engram, Giant great. I mean, I feel like Evan Engram now as a Giants fan is going to have a great career there with Jacksonville. But for Engram, it's about being consistent. He has stayed healthy the past couple of years. It was always about health. Now it's about staying consistent, having, being a part of the offense. The Giants, I feel like a lot of times last year did not really make any game plans around Evan Engram. This time with Jacksonville, maybe they do that. Evan Engram definitely has a unique skill set as a tight end. He's not a good blocker, but definitely has improved. I would say he's a bit below average at this point, but definitely not terrible. They also signed Foye Oluokun, who was with the Falcons. He's been their tackle leader a couple times, and 3 years, $45 million contract for them. They released Miles Jack, so I guess he'll kind of fit in that role there, another athletic linebacker. But, the Jaguars are not going for it, but they're trying to put themselves on the map here. They were, a 3 or 4 win team last year, so they should, as long as Trevor Lawrence improves and their offensive line at least holds up and Doug Peterson's not a terrible coach, which I don't think he will be, this Jaguars team should get around 6-7 wins next year, you would hope, especially spending all this money here in free agency. But we'll find out how it goes. But they were definitely the big spenders here in free agency so far. So anyway, that's going to do it. I went over some of the bigger moves here. If I forgot anything, let me know in the comments. If you want a part 2 of this, let me know in the comments as well. I will gladly do that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you guys next time.